Hello, everyone. So I am Rita. I am a data visualization engineer at Feedzai, and I am with Diogo, our data visualization intern, who is working at Feedzai doing his master thesis on accessibility in data visualization. Today, we're going to share with you our experience interviewing screen reader users to build accessible charts. And in this session, we are going to cover a few different topics. So we're going to talk about, just briefly explain to you what we do at Feedzai and why accessibility is important, why we are interested in interviewing screen reader users, some practical considerations that we've gathered from the interviews that we've done, and we would have appreciated to have these insights before getting started, what we have learned during the course of these interviews, and how we are applying this knowledge at Feedzai. So starting from the beginning, what do we do at Feedzai? So Feedzai offers fraud detection software that uses advanced machine learning algorithms that help to manage financial risk and to perform fraud detection in banks, merchants, and processors. And you might be wondering, so what does the process or what actually happens with transactions that are going through Feedzai system? And so let me explain to you very briefly. So imagine that you want to purchase something, let's say a new camera to take photographs, and you are doing this payment either digitally or in a physical location. There is a chance that the transaction that you are making to buy this item is going through Feedzai system. And by going through Feedzai system, there's machine learning models or rules or both of them combined that are trying to assess if your transaction is fraudulent and it's not really you, it's someone impersonating you and trying to buy this item, or on the other end of the spectrum, if it is really you, and if the fraud is, if the transaction is not fraud and it's just, it can go through. There's also a chance that the decision is inconclusive, and so the models and rules are not really sure about the legitimacy of the transaction, and so it is sent to be reviewed by a human. And there are two big user groups that are involved in this process. One of them are the data scientists, and these are the people that are in charge of developing models and rules to stop fraud. And by the way, these are two user groups with whom the data visualization team is working with on a daily basis. And the other group are the fraud analysts. And so these are the people that are actively reviewing the transactions when the models or rules are inconclusive. And for the time being, the fraud analysts and the needs of the fraud analysts are the ones that we are addressing by making or by trying to make accessible visualizations here at Feedzai. But why do we even care about interviewing screen readers, or for what it's worth, to create accessible visualizations? So the first reason is that we believe that working with Feedzai's product should not be exclusively for sighted users. So fraud analysts rely on a lot of charts and tabular data in order to make their decisions. And we believe that by bringing accessibility considerations into these elements, we are creating or trying to create a more accessible product. The second reason is that we are not screen reader users. So although we use this technology to try to assess if our charts are accessible, if they're working in the screen reader context, we are not proficient screen reader users, and we will never be able to assess the real needs of these users. And so we need to listen to them. The third reason is the fact that the research is still scarce on this topic, although we have seen an incoming growth on the research regarding accessibility in data visualization. There are not a lot of studies done trying to assess how screen reader users understand visualizations. On top of that, we are interested in a fairly specific kind of user, with someone that is very proficient in using the screen reader, and also as the need to use visualizations for their work and in order to make to be productive and to perform their work with quality. And so these are the considerations that we took, and this is why we are interested in interviewing screen reader users. Diogo is going to talk about in a moment about the experience that we've had with interviewing screen reader users and what are the main conclusions that we've gathered. But before that, we just wanted to share some practical considerations that we believe will be useful if you are also interested in interviewing screen reader users. And yeah, we hope it's helpful. So the process to try to reach out to these users, we divided it into 4 steps. The first one being finding these users, the second one contacting them, the third one hosting the actual sessions, and the fourth one the post-session contact. And so regarding finding users, just for context, so the interviews that we're talking about and that Diogo will go deeply into are the exploratory interviews that we have done to try to understand how the users are using charts and what needs they might have. But some of the examples I'm giving here are also coming from the further experience that we have gathered in doing the qualitative and quantitative evaluations of what we ended up building. So have that in mind. But regarding finding users to do these types of interviews and sessions, this was a difficult endeavor, and we ended up using 4 different approaches. So the first one was direct contact, and this has to do with, well, reaching out directly to the people who use screen reader users on a daily basis and ask them to participate in our studies. It gets complicated if you don't know anyone personally that might fit in this group of users, but we did know someone that knew a few people, and so that was the first way that we ended up getting users. The second one that proved really valuable was the snowball sampling. So once a user was identified, we asked them to provide contacts of other people that they know that could participate in the study. This proved really useful because we were, well, scheduling and getting to know the users to whom with whom we've contacted directly, and they would get a sense of what we were looking for, what type of people would be able, that they knew that would be able to give us useful insights, and so they ended up referring them back to us. And we've got some super interesting feedback from these snowball sampling users. The third and the fourth approaches are approaches that we have used for the tests on the tool that we ended up developing, but nevertheless, we found that it's worth mentioning. So we've used social media to reach out to some users, and we have, well, basically used channels where those users are active to announce an open call for the studies. There is one particular channel that is more active, which is the blind service Reddit. The only consideration that we think it's worth making here is the fact that, well, in order to be sure that the users are the type of users with the profile that you are looking for, it might be worth doing a mini test to try to understand proficiency with screen reader technologies, or something else that you might want to assess before going into the test itself. And the fourth one, which was also very useful, although we needed to do some, well, contacts with different organizations, was to reach out to the organizations that represent blind users and ask them to share with their network about the study. And we've ended up having a successful contact with ACAP, which is a Portuguese organization that represents the blind. And they basically shared with their network that we were doing this study and asked people to contact us if they were interested. And these were the 4 different approaches that we took. We ended up interviewing 5 people for the exploratory analysis that, well, Diogo is going to mention, and 15 others for the other tests. So we got a pool of 20 people from these different approaches. The second stage is contacting users. We think that it's worth mentioning that you should be concerned in accurately describing the project and intentions of the study. This way you can guarantee, again, that the users are the type of user that you are looking for, and that they will be able to provide you good insights, because they can also exclude themselves out if they believe that they're not. Well, using inclusive language, this is applicable to any type of user research, to be honest. And then communicate if there is some type of compensation. Well, communicate as well if there isn't, just be clear about that. The third step, hosting the session. So this is really important as well. You should be considerate about the type of technology that you are using, and always ask the person which technology, specifically if you are doing hosting the session virtually, which type of video conferencing technology are the person more comfortable with. If there needs to be any adaptation, it should be you and not the person that is that you are interviewing. And also when planning for the session time, maybe bear in mind as well that because people are talking to you and using the screen readers, the session may be more slower paced than you were expecting. After the sessions are concluded, be sure to reach out to thank users for their time. Also, share the developments of your research and how the insights are being used. This can be useful not only to kind of summarize the results and the feedback that people gave you, but also because, we have experienced it. People can go back to you and state additional considerations or validations to what you are trying to build next. And also, trying to create a user base from these sessions in order not to go back to the beginning when trying to plan for a set of other user tests. And this is it. These are the considerations that we took, and this is the context in which we were operating to interview the screen reader users. And now Diogo is going to share the experience with the interviews themselves and what we are planning.
Okay, so the steps and considerations that Rita shared just now with us were applied in interviews we did with 5 screen reader users. These interviews were done remotely. They were conducted through Zoom, and they took approximately 60 minutes each. They happened between January and February of this year, and they were a part of our research phase, which the main objective was to gain insights into how screen reader users interact with data visualizations in their daily routines. The feedback that we received from these interviews was very useful in understanding their concerns, practices, and workarounds regarding data visualizations. Firstly, let's try to go through what are the reasons that the interviewed screen reader users, and not only, interact with charts on the web. The majority of screen reader users are employed in different fields and primarily use this assistive technology for their daily web browsing activities, which means that they still check the news, weather updates, and other information, most of which is still conveyed using data visualizations. Luckily, we had the opportunity of speaking with participants that work daily with data visualizations, some with as data analysts, others as accessibility consultants, which are very aware of the accessibility barriers in the topic, not only of the web, but also of data visualizations. But how do they consume these visualizations in their daily usage? Given the widespread of inaccessibility of charts on the web, all 5 screen reader users heavily rely on table alternative formats and others, whether they are available instead of charts, which unfortunately in most cases these table alternatives are not even available. So when they do manage to have access to this data, what they commonly seek is, initially we discovered that they commonly seek when encountering visualizations, they appreciate understanding the different encodings, chart types, and orientations of the charts. However, as one of the users mentioned, it is important to not solely depend on this information, because some users, most likely those that have been blind since birth, never got the opportunity to see a chart, and because of it, they lack a mental model to relate to when encountering a visualization on the web. So some visual concepts like the X and Y axis, or a chart type like a bar or box plot, mean completely nothing to them. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean that this information it's not useful, because it can be useful for those that have the mental models. It just means that when trying to pass the message about the visualization, we should focus more on the data itself, and rather than relying solely on these visual aspects. Additionally, all screen reader users interviewed also expressed a desire for information about the data, statistical insights from it, including the average, maximum and minimum values, some of the data, and also trends about it present in the chart. So yeah, let's now discuss what in practices were the barriers that these users encountered that make all this information inaccessible for them at the moment. So what usually happens is that screen readers often skip charts because they are not properly identified as such and don't have the accessibility concerns that they should. What also happens is that even when these accessibility concerns and features are implemented, there is still missing information related to the chart. So there's information that are conveyed visually, but not through descriptions that we might write in through accessibility features. And also on the side of the developer itself that implement these visualizations, there's often a lack of time, knowledge, and effort to prioritize accessibility while building the charts themselves. Also, in terms of complexity, these interactions regarding the visualizations get even more difficult once we get to more complex data sets or even more complex chart types. There's also the problem of when encountering information, some of that information provided through the screen reader is not very useful for them, such as, let's say, repeated words or repeated phrases, even names of HTML elements at the end of the descriptions that mean nothing to the users that are hearing that description. Also, because not only the screen readers, but also the browsers have shortcuts, at times when implementing shortcuts in our own visualizations or our tools, that may be a clash between those shortcuts, which makes it happen so that some things happen at the same time and may cause confusion to the user. So that's something to be aware of. And also, some chart features might be broken in some cases in specific screen readers and browsers because they are not properly tested beforehand with, again, these multiple screen readers and browsers. So some users need to switch between their assistive technology of choice or browser in order to access the information we are trying to convey. So the way that these screen reader users overcome these struggles at the moment, most of them just seek assistance from sighted individuals which unfortunately questions the independence of screen reader users while navigating the web. They also resort a lot to, again, tables and exporting raw data of the charts to another tools like spreadsheets, Excel, and work that data themselves, again, whenever it's possible. That most of the times is not even possible. And we also heard some cases of some creative individuals that attempt to, they not only inspect the code of the websites, but also try to edit it in some way that makes the information of the charts available to them that is not properly available at the moment. So to summarize the features, not only coming from suggestions of the users, but also solutions to the problems that I just mentioned. So screen reader users prioritize, when encountering data visualizations, comprehensive descriptions of essential information within the charts and the data inside the chart itself. Also, keyboard shortcuts that facilitate quicker analysis and conclusions about the data present in the charts. The ability to navigate at a higher level, but also a granular level between the data elements of a visualization. And also, lastly, arguably only if the above three features are not fully accessibility implemented, it becomes also crucial to have a table alternative and ability to export data to other means. So all 5 of these interviews were conducted as part of my thesis project, in which we are trying to build a tool that aims to automating the addition of accessibility features for JavaScript charts in the context of screen reader usage. It offers 3 sets of main features for the attached charts, which are intuitive navigation between the charts that has this tool attached, but also the underlying elements of each one. Also, automatic generation of concise and detailed short descriptions. And lastly, a lot of shortcuts that not only accelerate navigation between data elements, lets the user quickly switch between the various types of descriptions, and also provides quick insights and statistics about the data inside of the charts without requiring the user to manually do the calculations themselves. And that's it. Thank you very much.